Good morning, all of you. So, this is a this is our session number 2, in which we are going to discuss with what biodiversity and conservation. Basically, in this today's session, we will be discussing most important topics. Definitely, some sort of questions it will be coming in a paper. Okay, what is our approach? Our approach is what? First of all, we will be talking about the current affair, and along with that, we will be talking its basic fundamentals, concept. Is it okay? So, now, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity. What is biodiversity? In all form interactions. Okay. So when you talk about biodiversity means what? When you talk about the biodiversity, basically we are talking about the what? Number of species. The number of species. We are not talking about the populations. There may be like a lot of population in particular species. If we talk about like a particular species, okay, and in that particular species, if you have a lot of population, that doesn't mean that we have a stronger biodiversity. When you talk about the biodiversity, that means what? Lots of species it should be there. Lots of species it should be there. Okay, so 1992 United Nations Earth Summit defines biodiversity as variability among living organisms. Variability means what? We are talking about the number of species. We are talking basically, we are concerned about species. Okay, from all the sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystem, and the ecological complex of which they are the part. They include diversity within species. They include diversity within species, between species, and ecosystem of a region. It was this particular concept. It was being introduced by Walter Rossens. Okay, basically, when you talk about the biodiversity, remember one thing: insects. If we talk about like different sort of organisms, the highest biodiversity is for what? Is for insects. The highest biodiversity is for insects. Insects. Is it okay? Highest biodiversity. On terrestrial land we have. Yes, I will give it after the classes. You need it? Okay, I will just ask man to forward it, but don't go through the questions. The questions I have developed, it's of all analytical natures. If you read the answers, your analytical skills, it will go away. PDF. Okay, now, so insect, they are having what? Highest biodiversity on the terrestrial land. Which ecosystem they are having the maximum biodiversity? Equatorial rainforest. What? Equatorial rainforest. So on terrestrial land, what we have? Equatorial rainforest. Okay, and in marine ecosystem, coral reefs. It is having the maximum biodiversity. It's your coral reefs. Is it okay? Now, when you talk about this biodiversity concept, it was being propounded by Walter Rossens. Edward Wilson popularized the concept biodiversity to describe the diversity to all the levels of biological organism, from population to, okay. Now, levels of biodiversity. What are the levels of biodiversity? Biodiversity ranges from the genetic level within a species to the biodata in a specific region, and extend to the greater diversity found in the different biomes. For example, when you talk about the biodiversity, it existing within the species itself. Within the species, when you talk about a particular species, they do have what? They do have biodiversity because of what? Genetic variations. For example, first is what? Genetic diversity. Diversity of genes within a particular species. That means what? For example, you can see when you talk about the continental tiger, what is their name? Scientific name? Panthera tigris. Okay, so this is the scientific name. So Panthera tigris, it's a one species. It's a what? One species. But under it we have what? Bengal tiger is there, Malayan tiger is there, Indo-Chinese tigers are there, and Siberian tigers are there. Siberian tigers are there. So when we talk about this, this reflects what? Genetic diversity. This reflects what? Genetic diversity. Is it okay? Okay. Other is what? Species diversity. Diversity among the species in ecosystem. We talk about, if we talk about ecosystem, for example, a pond, it's an ecosystem. In that particular ecosystem, you have different species of fishes are there. So that means what? We are taking a particular ecosystem. In that particular ecosystem, we are considering the number of different species. So that is your what? Species diversity. Is it okay? Now, ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity. When you talk about ecosystem diversity, suppose we have grassland and we have what? Pond. Now, in the pond, obviously, what? Different sort of fishes it will be there. So ultimately, what? And when you talk about the grassland, there what we will have? Different herbivorous. Is it okay? So when you talk about like ecosystem 1, it will have species diversity. Ecosystem 2, it will have species diversity. Now, when they are being compared, we will what? We will see it's your ecosystem diversity. For example, we have equatorial rainforest. Equatorial rainforest, which is having the maximum biological diversity, and on the other we have temperate climate region. Consider it. Yeah, polar region. Yeah, what we have? Polar region. Okay. So this is what? Ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem सबसे ज़्यादा diversity कहाँ होगा? Which will have the maximum diversity and सबसे lowest biodiversity. So when we compare this diversity on an ecosystem level, that is called your ecological diversity. Okay, this. Okay. Now measurement of diversity. Measurement of diversity. First is your what? Alpha diversity. Species diversity within a particular area ecosystem is called local diversity. For example, if you talk about a pond, okay, what is the different number of species residing in this particular pond? That reflects your alpha diversity. When we compare for a particular ecosystem, that is called your what? Alpha diversity. Next is your what? Beta diversity. Beta diversity means what? Now we are going to compare the two ecosystems. The comparison of the diversity between the ecosystem usually measured as a change in the, for example, we have, suppose consider this is your forest, okay, and this is your what? Desert, and here what we have? Grassland. So when we have to compare the biodiversity of forest and grassland, we will be using our what? Beta diversity. Okay, beta diversity. Now, suppose we have discussed about ecotones. Have we discussed the ecotones? So, grassland falls on the what? Ecotones. So, when you talk about this grassland, it is a what? It's a transitional zone in between the two ecosystems. So, this is your ecotones. So, in ecotones, what we have studied? We have studied the age effect. Age effect. Is it okay? Age effect. Okay, it's because of age effect what? We will have the biodiversity, where we will have the greatest biodiversity, we will have what? A stronger biodiversity from here, because in this transitional zone, we will have certain animals or species from here, we will have certain species from here, and apart from this particular ecosystem, it will have own its endemic species, and because of this is what? Age effect. Now, do you think this age effect, it correlates to your beta diversity? Age effect, because when you talk about this grassland, it is attached to the forest, and apart from that, on the other transitional zones, and it is being attached to the desert, Is it okay? Forest, grassland and desert. So this is what ecolines I have discussed. This is what ecolines. So from forest, obviously what will happen? There will be certain species from the forest residing on the grassland. So that means what, when you talk about the age effect, it reflects what? It is concerned with the beta diversity. It is concerned with the beta diversity. Is this okay? Comparison of diversity between the ecosystem usually measured in the change in the species composition. When you talk about the age species, what is the age affected? Age species means what? There will be certain species from the forest and there will be certain species from the desert. They will be residing in this particular grassland and apart from that, it will have its own endemic species. Okay? And finally, we have what? Gamma diversity, a measure of the overall diversity for the different ecosystem within a large region. Example, geographic diversity. For example, if you talk about like equatorial rainforest, it's a what? Biome, a bigger geographical region. So there we will be talking about the gamma diversity. So here, this is the alpha diversity. This is what? Alpha diversity within a particular ecosystem. We will see the number of species, and this is what? Beta diversity in between the two ecosystems. When the species, number of species, it is being compared, and when for the bigger geographical region, when the diversity is being considered, it will be your gamma diversity. Now there's two concepts. Biodiversity, the variety of organisms present in an ecosystem. One is what? Richness. What is species richness? The number of different species present in an ecosystem. The more is the number, the more is the richness. For example, when you talk about a particular equatorial rainforest region, there what we have? Species richness or species evenness. Kya hoga? Species richness, because when we have discussed, when we talk about the equatorial rainforest, it is having the maximum biodiversity on the terrestrial land. Maximum biodiversity means what? It will have maximum number of species. So that means what? We are concerned with the species richness. A species richness is what? Number of species in a ecosystem. More is the number of species, more is the number of species, more is the richness. More is the richness. Okay. Now, evenness. If a habitat had similar abundance of each species present, that habitat is to be what? Evenness. That means what? No doubt they will be having what? They will be having lots of species. It will be there. Lots of different species. It will be there. But when you talk about the population this seems to be what? Constant. Okay. Evenness. Now we have discussed this. For example, patterns of patterns of biodiversity, latitudinal gradients. Biodiversity is not uniform, it varies with latitude and altitude. Species diversity decreases as they move away from equator towards the pole, and because of that, equatorial rainforest is what? Having maximum biodiversity. Tropics support more species than the temperate or polar region. Climate, tropical environment are less seasonal, more constant and predictable in nature, and because of that, the number of species is what? Greater over there. Here we have what? Species richness. Now, loss of biodiversity, they are called your evil quartet. Example, habitat loss and fragmentation. Okay, for example, if you talk about the deforestation, okay, that is responsible for your decreasing the biodiversity. If a question is being asked, like when you talk about the microplastic, we will be discussing tomorrow. So do you think this microplastic, they are responsible for decreasing the biodiversity? Yes. If you talk about the pollutions, okay, that will be definitely responsible for what? Eliminating some of the species. Genetically modified crops, they're also responsible for what? Eliminating some of the species. Okay, na? Other is what? Overpopulations, alien species, invasions, non-native species. Is it okay? Co-extinction, when a host species goes extinct, the parasite pollinators obligated to it also perish. That means what? For example, we have discussed that we are using genetically modified crops for the purpose of what? Genetically modified mosquitoes for the purpose of controlling of malaria. If it is being accepted throughout the world, what will happen? The malaria will get, this particular mosquito will get extinct. Mosquito means what? Which mosquito? Anopheles mosquito, they will get extinct. Maybe possible that the host, that is your Plasmodium falciparum, it will also get extinct. And there are certain insects that is dependent upon the mosquito, they will also get extinct. These are the conservation strategies. In situ means what? On site itself, we have biodiversity hotspot, richness with high levels of species richness and high endemism, protected area national park, biosphere reserve, wildlife sanctuaries, sacred groups. We have ex situ like zoological park, botanical garden, preservation, and what we have, seed bank. Okay. Now we'll talk about the biodiversity hotspot. For example, we have discussed that when we talk about the biodiversity hotspot, they have what? High species richness. High species richness means what? They will have more number of different type of species. It will be there. What are the criteria we have to go? The criteria for the selection of biodiversity hotspot is what? Contain at least 1500 species of vascular plants found nowhere else on the earth, known as endemic species. So suppose if certain biological area, it has to be what? If it has to be considered as a biological hotspot, it has to what? Qualify this criteria. That means what? In that particular region, it will have more than 1500 different varieties of vascular plants. When you talk about the vascular plants, vascular means what? They correlate to vascular tissues. For example, xylem and phloem tissues, they are your what? Vascular tissues. And have lost at least 70% of its primary native vegetation due to what? Human action. And because of this, it will be under your biological hotspot area. Okay. So presently, how much biological hotspot we have throughout the world? What is the number? Biological hotspots, and out of which how much belongs to India? Check it once. The total number of biological hotspots throughout the world. Check it once. It's 36. Check it. We have that you are talking about the what? The most important biological hotspot, that is 18 number. Okay, 36 we have. We have 36 biological hotspots, and out of which 4 belongs to India. These are the hotspots. Okay. Now, hottest of the hotspot, we have 18 number. Okay. Indo-Burma region, Sundaland, Philippines, Western Ghat, Madagascar, Eastern Arc and coastal forest of Tanzania, Caribbean islands, and Brazil, Atlantic forest. These are the what? 8 hottest of the hotspot, out of which you can see 3 belongs to India. Hottest of the hotspot. Okay. So this is your 4 biological hotspot region. This is what? Himalayan region. We have Western Ghat region. We have Indo-Burma region. Apart from that, we have what? Sundaland. GIASH. What is it? GIAS. It is responsible for what? It is responsible for what? It is responsible for maintaining sustainable agriculture throughout the world. Sustainable and traditional agriculture. Sustainable and what? Traditional agriculture. So, and this is called a globally important agriculture heritage sites. Globally important agriculture heritage site means what? Here, the method of agriculture is what? It's a traditional approach, and apart from that, it is very much sustainable in nature. Okay. So, Genesis launched at the World Summit for the Sustainable Development in 2002. What is the purpose? Protect family farming, traditional agricultural systems from threats such as climate change, community displacement, and biodiversity loss. For example, if I ask you, do you think any sort of area, any sort of agricultural practices which involves genetically modified crops, do you think, or genetically edited crops, Do you think that can be considered under this GIAS? No. Okay, there what we are considering traditional approach, conventional approach, indigenous approach. Okay. Currently, we have approximately 35 GIAS sites. And when we talk about India, in India, we have how much? 3 sites. Okay, 3 sites. That is your Koraput, traditional agriculture, it is Odisha, Kutanad, below sea level farming, it's from Kerala, and Pampore, saffron heritage from Jammu and Kashmir. These are the 3 sites that belong to your GIAS. And apart from that, some of the sites that are being added is your a traditional agroforestry system of erva meat plant in Brazil, a specialized farming system in China for pearl mussels and mollusks, white tea and pearls, ancestral system preserving vital food crops in biodiversity in Mexico, and a distinct farming system in on the volcanic landscape of Lanzarote, Spain. So these are the different sites that is being added to your, yeah, just questions can be developed out of it through match the column. Just go through it. So this is your what? Koraput traditional agriculture in Odisha. Koraput traditional agriculture in Odisha represents sustainable, biodiversity-rich farming system managed by the indigenous tribal communities. Okay, Khond and Paroja. It focuses on in-situ conservation of hundreds of traditional rice land races, millets, medicinal plants on highland scope, emphasizing the ecological benefits of subsistence farming. For example, you can see that earlier when you go for the rice cultivation, along with the rice cultivation, you will practice the aquaculture also. Is it? पहले आंध्र में भी हुआ था this such type of agricultural practices, but now it is not feasible. Do you think such type of practices are? Yeah, but such type of practices it is still persisting in this particular region itself. Okay. Now, Kutanad below sea level farming system. A Kutanad below sea level farming system in Kerala is a globally recognized agricultural heritage system where the rice is cultivated 1.2 to 3 meters below mean sea level on reclaimed land. Utilizing techniques developed over 150 years, farmers build earthen bunds. These are the earthen bunds. Suppose this is the agricultural plot. So what we will do? They will build this barriers. Okay, and these barriers they will be prepared with the help of what? Earthen bunds to create artificial islands in the backward waters, employing water management, dewatering to manage salinity and seasonal flooding. Okay, for example, suppose this is the river, suppose this was the coastline. Okay, so suppose the water has moved from here, so what they will do, they will reclaim it, and after that what? They will put the barrier. Okay, and after that water is being released, and water is being released, and they will carry out the agriculture over it. Okay, this is here for saffron farming. So, Pampore Saffron Heritage, Jammu and Kashmir. It is located 15 kilometers of Jammu and Kashmir. It is the saffron town in the heart of Kashmir. Centuries-old heritage, producing the world highest quality, known for its unique. What is the significance of this Kerala soil? It is being used for the what? For the production of saffron. Okay. So let's write it down. Write one important questions. Important questions. Okay, write it down. Bio input resources center. Bio input resources center in coordination with natural farming. In coordination with natural farming. That either it can be asked in your prelims paper. Now, the bio input resource center, a cluster. It was being what? It was being decided in 2023-2024 budget that the government they are responsible for creating how much? 10,000 BRCs. They are responsible for creating how much? 10,000 BRCs under your national mission of national farming. National mission of natural farming. Natural farming. Is it okay? So what is BRC? Bio Input Resource Centers, a cluster level enterprise providing time-tested, locally prepared biological inputs. Biological inputs, we are not talking about the chemical input. We are not talking about what genetically modified crops input. Okay, we are not talking about. Remember one thing. We are not talking about chemical input. Chemical input, it is not considered apart from the genetically modified input also be not considered. Is it okay? For example, cow dung, the preparation of cow dung, it's a what? Biological input, cow dung. And when you talk about the cow dung, it belongs to your natural farming practices itself. Is it okay? So key features is what? The government, it is going to provide how much? 1 lakh for setup. 1 lakh for setup of this particular BRC. But you should have sets, you should have premises. You should have sets and you should have what? Premises. Okay, the government is not going to provide 1 lakh for the purpose of what? Taking the places. Rather 1 lakh, it will be provided to you to what? Go for the BRC development. Already you should have the spaces. Who can operate BRC? Farmer practicing natural farming, farmer produce organizations, self-help groups, cooperative farming, the farmers who go for the cooperative practices, and apart from that, Kisan Vikas Kendras. They can what? They can get the rupees, they can get the 1 lakh rupees from the government and they can what? Develop BRCs. Linked with Gausalas at Gram Panchayat level. They should be linked with what? Gausalas, because one of the important ingredients is what? Cow dung, and because of that, it should be linked with the Gausalas. Okay. Now, natural mission of natural farming aimed promoting natural farming practices for providing nutritious food to all. That means what? Here we are concerned with the development of organic food product. Is it? Centrally sponsored scheme. When you talk about the centers here, center to states here, 10:90:10 for hilly regions, and for northeastern state, it's for 60:40. Can you target 2025 to 2026? This particular mission, it is under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, National Steering Committee at the national level under the chairmanship of the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare. Now, what are the key targets? We have to develop 15,000 cluster in Gram Panchayat, which are willing to develop it. How much? 15,000. Reach 1 crore farmers initiate natural farming. Around 2,000 NF natural farming models, demonstrations, farms shall be established at Krishi Vikan Kendras. Already we have discussed that when we talk about the Krishi Vikas Kendra, they will be what? They can become this BRCs. Okay, they can go forward the development of BRCs. So already this is the target that we have to develop 2,000 natural farming model demonstration. 30,000 Krishi Sakhis, community resource personals for easy scaling of the NF practices knowledge. Okay. When you talk about the natural farming means what? Natural farming, that means what? There we will be using what? Natural farming, it correlates to organic farming without any sort of use of chemicals. For example, when you talk about natural farming, there are 4 main important components. The important components is what? First is what? Jiv Amrit, a process enhances the fertility of the soil using cow urine, dung, fluoropulses and jaggery. Is it okay? So this is what your Jiv Amrit. Next is your what? Vizamrit. Vizamrit means what? The seed, it should be treated. The process includes treatment of seeds using cow dung, urine and lime-based formulation, so that what? If those particular seeds, if they have been planted, what? They will easily get developed into the sapling. Is it okay? That means what? These seeds are not normal seeds. These seeds, they are what? Nutritious one. Third is your what? Vapsa. Vapsa means what? The process involves activating earthworm in the soil in order to create water vapor condensation. And last is what? Mulching. The process involves creating microclimate using different mulches. For example, there are certain areas, okay, where the evapotranspiration is very much higher. Because of that, what we'll do? We will cover the soil with the help of mulches. Mulches means what? The fodders. For example, the fodders. Okay, stubbles. Stubble budding stubbles. Stubbles, they will be what? Placed over there, so that what? They can reduce evapotranspirations. And we have discussed that soil moisture, they are very much important. Soil moistures, they are very much important. These are the 4 things that are being utilized in your natural farming. So this is, go through this natural farming notes. Natural farming is a sustainable, chemical-free method that avoids manufactured inputs. It was popularized by Masanobu in his 1975 book. Okay, but when you talk about the India, this particular concept, it was being propounded by, in India, what is the name of the scientist? In India, this particular concept, it was being propounded by, what is the name? Subhas Palekar. Subhas Palekar. Okay. Zero budget natural farming. The concept of this natural farming, they are called your concept of zero budget natural farming. Is it okay? Okay. When you talk about this particular project, zero budget natural farming, it correlates to your natural farming, and apart from this particular project, it was being started considering two things in mind. One is what? To reduce the farmer debt, and apart from that, there was a committee called Ashok Dalwai committee. It talks about doubling of farmer incomes. Obviously, what if fertilizers, pesticides are not being used? What will happen? It's going to enhance productivity. It's going to enhance what? Economic generations. Okay. Now go through this question. Which one? Yes, which one? D. D. See what? We have discussed that BRC correlates to what? Natural farming, or it correlates to what? Zero budget natural farming. ठीक है ना? Biofactories. It correlates to natural farming, or is what? Zero budget natural farming. So here, synthetic enzymes. What is the use of synthetic enzymes? Synthetic enzymes is what? They are the nothing but they are being developed. Synthetic enzymes means what? They are the chemicals. They are the chemicals. So obviously we have discussed that there is no use of chemicals in natural farming. So this is okay. The National Mission of Natural Farming Framework mandates a livestock-centric approach, where the establishment of BRC is legally contingent upon its physical linkage with the Gausala at the Gram Panchayat. Okay, this is very much important because we have seen that cow dung, and apart from that, okay, this is very much important. While the mission is centrally sponsored, the funding pattern of the tenure till is 90-10 for ratio, especially for the hilly region, the northeastern states. Okay, how much? Now, this is very much important. This forest laws, it is very much important for your prelims this time. 2026 prelims. Is it okay? So, write it down. Prelims 2025 important questions. Write it down. One, Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Amendment 2025. वन संरक्षण एवं संवर्धन अमेंडमेंट 2025 and latest 2026 guidelines coupled with Forest Right Act 2006 okay. Definitely this question it will become in your paper, definitely. And when this question, suppose UPSC will explore this particular question, it will be introducing or it will be adding this what Forest Right Act 2006 itself. ठीक है ना question? It's an integrated question. Okay, now try to understand this concept. Okay. Now first of all, is it visible to everyone? Visible to everyone? Now evolving forest laws in India. The Indian legal landscape for forest has moved from revenue generation. When you talk about the British rules, okay, they have what? They are only responsible for what? Revenue generations. But now we have shifted from revenue generation to what? Conservation of the forest. Okay, conservation of the forest. And because of this, you can see that we have this compensatory afforestations. Is it okay? And now to climate aligned movement, climate aligned management or for the conservation of forest. Okay. For example, earlier one is what? Indian Forest Act 1927, colonial law forced on timber extraction. It defined reserve, protected and village foresters. Okay. Then we have 1942nd amendment, constitutional amendment, shifted forest and protection of wildlife from the state list to what? Concurrent list, giving the central overriding authority. This is very much important. Is it okay? Then we have what? Forest Conservation Act 1980, aimed at stopping the massive diversion of forest land to non-forest purposes. It made central government approval mandatory for any diversion. Is it okay? Earlier what? The forest land, it can be diverted for the development of industry and all those things, and because of that what? The land will get degraded, and because of this act now it requires what? Central government permission. Okay. Now next is your T.N. Goda Burman cases 1996. The Supreme Court expanded the definition of forest to include any area matching the dictionary meaning deemed forest regardless of ownership. That means what? Even the private land, it can be considered what? As a forest itself. After that, we have this new amendment, Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Aviniyam 2023, a major legislative overall that renamed the Act, Forest Conservation Act. It was being renamed as Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Aviniyam, restricted its scope to recorded forest and provided strategic exemptions. Strategic exemptions is what? For example, there are certain national security projects. We have to lay roads. We have to what? We have to lay roads in LWE areas. Okay. Then what? We have to construct the road in the border regions itself. So obviously, what? That will be exempted from this compensatory afforestation. This was being included in this. Okay. Now 2025 rules again. Operationalize the 2023 Act with working permissions and says 1-2 clarity. We'll discuss. And finally, we have what? 2026 guidelines. The most recent refinement, January 2026, focusing on private participation, ecological restoration. For example, we are having the degraded lands. Now even the NGOs, private entities, they can take this land for the purpose of what? Restoration. For the purpose of what? Restoration activities. So now we have to discuss this thing, and apart from this, each and everything, it's become very much important. We have to discuss in detail. If you're having any sort of doubt, please do let me know. Okay. So, One Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Amendment 2025. Okay. So first is what? Introduction of working permission. The rules state government can now grant working permission for the linear projects like road, railway, transmission lines immediately after stage 1 in principle. That means what? Earlier we have to wait for a stage 1 approval and stage 2 approval. When these things are being approved, we will go for the infrastructural development. But now what we have? Working permission. That means what? If stage 1 is being granted, you can start working on that particular project. Working on that particular project means what? Working on that particular project means what? The preliminary work can be started. It doesn't mean that you will start laying down the roads, start laying down the concrete. It doesn't mean preliminary work. It can be started. The details. This allows for the initial resource mobilization, site preparation, but strictly prohibits permanent work like black topping or laying tracks until stage 2 is approved. Is it okay? So this is basically being done so that what? We can increase our infrastructure. Earlier we have the government, they have to wait for stage 1 approval, the stage 2 approval, and finally when both the stages they are being approved, they will go for what? Construction. But now if one stage 1 is being granted, you can go for what? What is the loophole over here? Suppose if stage 1 it is being granted, what will happen? They will start the deforestation. They will start the deforestation, and because of that, Abhi Andhra Pradesh there was a strike in Hyderabad. Are you aware of it? Near the university region. Central University. One of my friends, his name is Ashutosh Pandey. He was responsible. He was Ashutosh Pandey. Yes, go through the YouTube. He's my friend. He's an ecologist. Okay, he was awarded lots of prizes. So he has participated in this particular project itself. Okay, from Sultanpur UP to this. Okay, so उसी के लिए तो क्यों? What is the reason? See, the reason is what? Earlier we have to the state government or the entities, they have to wait for 2 to 5 years, 7 years. Stage 1 it is being granted, stage 2 it is being granted, then only they will start the project. But because of this, what will happen now? They will start the project. And once the forest they have undergone the process of deforestation, ultimately what? Stage 2 it will be permitted. है ना? आपको समझ में आ रहा है मैं क्या कहना चाह रहा हूँ? ठीक, it's a loophole. Clear? अभी you must be knowing about the Aravali, है ना? Mine extraction provision. Okay. So it correlates to what? It talks about what? Speedy development of infrastructure. It talks about what? Speedy development of infrastructure. Okay. Now extension of approval validity. The validity of a stage 1 approval has been extended from 2 to 5 years. That means what? Once this stage 1 it is being approved, the entities, they will start implementing the project and they will work on this project for 5 years. Now after that, what? The government, they have to approve for the stage 2 only. Okay. This acknowledges the long gestation periods of infrastructure project, reduces the red tape of frequent and renewable. That means what? Mechanically and from the examination perspective, we have to say that what? These two things, they correlate to what? Speedy development of infrastructure project, and apart from that, they are against, or they restricts what? Red tapeism mechanism. Third is what? Third point, critical and strategic minerals focus. For mining projects involving minerals like lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements essential for the India net zero goals, the minimum land use periods have been reduced from 20 to 10 years for faster exploitation. That means, so earlier they will be what? Given this particular reason for 20 years, so that what? They can extract the minerals. Now for the faster extraction of the minerals, what? Now this 20 years it has been reduced to 10 years for the faster extraction of minerals. Talks about what? India's economic development. It says India's economic development India's economic development. Okay, India's economic development, it correlates to what? Development of semiconductor based industries. So because of this, if faster minerals are being extracted, what will happen? Faster development of semiconductor based industries, faster development of semiconductor based industries. Apart from that, now presently the government is focusing toward the what? Quantum technology. So obviously what? For the quantum technology, chips should be developed, and for the chips what we need, these particular minerals are being developed, required. So quantum technology also, it also correlates to what? Development of quantum technology. Development of quantum technology. And apart from that, it also correlates to what? Faster deployment of electric vehicles. Why? Because in the electric vehicles, what? We use battery, lithium ion batteries being used. And what is the term? Lithium. Okay, so these are the what? Extracted statement. Faster deployment of electric vehicles. It is correlated to what? Net zero emissions by 2070. It correlates to what? Net zero emissions. These points are very much important. See, lithium is there. Lithium is then, apart from that, what is lithium? Net zero emission. That means, for when you talk about the lithium, from the lithium we will be developing lithium and battery. Lithium and battery, we talk about what? Electrical vehicles itself. Is it okay? Second is what? Cobalt, rare earth metal, nickel, and these things are very much important for the development of semiconductor based industries. Okay. Now, compensatory afforestation. What is compensatory afforestation? What is compensatory afforestation? What is compensatory afforestation? Suppose there are some protected region, protected areas, forests are there. If bigger industries is to be developed, like power plant, thermal power plant, nuclear power plant, hydroelectricity based power plants, if those industries are being developed, obviously what we have to go for the deforestation. So it's the responsibility of those organizations that equivalent NPV, net present value, they have to develop what? Afforestation in some other part of the region itself. So that is called your compensatory afforestation. Okay. Now, compensatory afforestation refinement. Compensatory afforestation, land allowed to be either transferred to the forest department or notified and protected under the Indian Forest Act 1927 or other laws. Okay. Earlier, before this 2025 amendment, suppose a particular company, it is there, it is going to work on this protected land, okay, protected forest itself, and because of that it will go for the deforestation. Okay, so obviously in lieu of that, that particular industry, it has to develop afforestation in some other part, other protected region itself. That is called your compensatory afforestation. Earlier, that they have to carry this compensatory afforestation in some other protected region, in some other protected forest itself. Okay, but now you can see that compensatory afforestation land allowed to be either transferred to the forest department or notified as protected area under Indian Forest Act 1927. So now we are having two things. As per earlier provisions, the protected, the compensatory afforested area, it's called what? Protected forest. So it will be under your Forest Conservation Act 1927, or now it will be what? Transferred to the forest department also. There are two provisions. Offline applications. To maintain confidentiality and speed of the project of the national security, defense and emergency importance. National security, defense and emergency importance. Project proponents can now apply offline bypassing the standard Parivesh portal. Is it okay? That is what all these things, they are being done for the purpose of what? So that what? Okay. For economic growth. For economic growth. Okay. Now 2026 amended guidelines, the most recent refinement focusing on the private participation and ecological restoration. That means the private entities, NGO, they can participate for the purpose of what? Restoring the degraded forest. Okay, clear? Just read it once. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Just read it once. If there is any doubt, please do let me know. Clear? Now, when you talk about this strategic minerals, for example, the companies, extraction companies for mining project like involving minerals, lithium and cobalt and rare earth materials, obviously what they have to go for the compensatory afforestation. Obviously, they will go for what? What these companies, they require what? Compensatory afforestation, CA. Now, this compensatory afforestation, they will be carried on what? Degraded forest land. Degraded forest land. They have to carry this afforestation on what? Degraded forest land. Earlier on non-forest land. Earlier on what? Non-forest land. Okay. So they will carry out this compensatory afforestation on degraded forest land. Forest land. Earlier, they have to carry this compensatory afforestation on non-forest land. Non-forest land. Okay. Done. Okay. Now, Forest Conservation Amendment Act 2023, we have to study it. Definition of forest. Okay. For example, when the questions UPSC will ask the question from this 2025 rules itself, it will be obviously including some of the statement from this, like the definition of forest and all those things, so that what student get confused. Okay, so that is why these things are very much important. Okay, na? Definition of forest. Land declared or notified as a forest. Okay, we have land declared or notified as a forest under any law, Indian Forest Act 1927. So if a particular land that has been declared as a forest under 1927 Forest Act 1927, it will be considered as what? forest. First point. Second, land recorded as forest in the government records, Revenue and Forest Department on or after 25th October 1980. That means what? When you talk about the other lands, that other lands, it has been recorded in the Forest Department or Revenue offices as a what? Forest. Then it will also be considered as what? Forest. Land recorded as forest in government records, Revenue on or after 25th October 1980. This does not include land which has been officially changed from forest use to use for non-forest purposes on or before 1996. That means what? Before 1996, if the government has permitted any sort of forest land for any sort of non-forest use means what? For the development of industries, that won't be considered as what? Forest. And you have to remember this deadline, 1996. ठीक है ना? Is it okay? In 2024, the Supreme Court directed states and UTs to follow 1996 TN Godvarman cases definition of forest. Okay. Now, the Forest Conservation Act Amendment Act 2023 exempts strategic linear project, roads, rail within 100 kilometers of international borders from forest clearance to fast track national security infrastructure project connected in sensitive regions. Okay, fast track approval, it will be done. Apart from that, in this particular project, there is no need to carry out what? CA, compensatory afforestations. Okay. Now, excluded from the definition of non-forest purpose. That means what? If activities involved, if non-forest purpose means what? Non-forest purpose means what? Development of infrastructure project, development of industries, where it is mandatory to carry out compensatory afforestation. Are you getting my point? So non-forest means what? Like industry development, infrastructure project, okay, where it is what? Mandatory to go for what? Compensatory afforestation. ठीक है ना? So now you can see that these are excluded from the definition of non-forest purpose. That means what? Now they are being considered as a what? Forestry itself. Now they consider as a what? Forestry itself. So establishment of zoos, safaris under Wildlife Protection Act 1972 in the forest areas other than the protected area. That means what? If safaris and zoos are established, they will be considered as what? They will be considered as what? Forest itself. That means what? They do not require compensatory afforestations. Okay. Ecotourism facilities included in the plans of the areas. Ecotourism facilities. Silviculture operations including regenerational operations. Any other purpose specified by the central government. That means what? Strategic linear project. So then they are being exempted from the definition of non-forest purpose. That means what? They do not require compensatory afforestations. Clear? Okay. Now, so this is what we have discussed about. We have discussed about Forest Conservation Act 2023, apart from that, the latest amendment that is being made in 2025. Now we will see certain guidelines that is being added in 2026. The latest guidelines added in the January month itself. What is the significance of it? Okay. Reclassification of forestry activities. Forestry, we have discussed, there are two sort of activities. One is what? Non-forest activities, and other is what? Forestry activities. Forest, if you talk about forest, non-forest activities, it will be what? Compensatory. This is what your forestry activities. Okay, reclassification as forestry activity, plantation and afforestation activities on the forest land are now treated as forestry activities instead of non-forest use. That means what? If you go for the restoration, ecological restoration, if you're going for the plantation, if you're going for plant development of plants over the degraded land, they will be considered as what? Forestry activities. ठीक है ना? उसको क्या consider किया जाएगा? Forestry activities. Okay. What? Why? Speeds up the restoration activities, ecological restoration और ecological conservation. ठीक है ना? अभी आप सोच रहे होंगे कि सर ये पहले ही धीरे धीरे रूल्स बदलता है. Okay, exemptions from NPA, net present value. For example, if mining industries, okay, if you have to set for the static mining industries, we have seen that it is compulsory, it is mandatory for the development of what? Compensatory afforestation. That particular compensatory afforestation after the amendment 2025, it has to be carried on what? Degraded land. If we have to carry the, we have to, when you talk about this forest, they have ecological values. They have what? Ecological values are there. So equivalent amount of those forests, it has to be created over that degraded land. That is called NPV. So exemptions from NPV and CA, which one? Plantation and afforestations. Plantations and afforestations. Is it okay? So the requirement of to pay present net value and perform compensatory afforestations are waived for this specific restoration project. Is it okay? Now who will carry out this restoration project? Even the NGOs, they can participate. Non-government participation, state governments are empowered to engage private and non-government entities. This is important for restoration of degraded forest land. Okay. Safeguard, government retains the ownership and management, but they have to carry out under the management of government, which, ठीक है ना? State government. Revenue sharing, states can now devise case specific framework for utilization and revenue sharing for the plantations. ठीक है? Why this is being done? We have seen that when you talk about the restoration of degraded forests, it will be taken by the private parties, NGOs. Now, if they take it earlier, they were reluctant to take because that will be considered as what? Non-forest activities. But now they will actively participate because now they have been changed from non-forest to forest activities. That means what? No need to pay NPV, no need to carry out compensatory afforestations. Is it? Okay. Now, if these questions are being asked, obviously if these questions are being asked, to make it very tricky in nature, these questions, it will be integrated with the Forest Right Act. Forest Right Act. Is it okay? So that is why we have to know a bit about the Forest Right Act. The scheduled tribes and the other traditional forest dwellers, recognition of Forest Right Act 2006, pillars of right and eligibility. Now, scheduled tribes member and the forest dependent non-scheduled tribes, but what is the criteria? They should be living that particular area for around 75 years. That means what? 3 generations. What are the rights they will get? Individual right up to 4 hectares area they will be getting. Community rights, grazing, water bodies, minor forest produce. Okay. Ownership, bamboo, honey, wax. So these are what? Community rights. Right to manage, this is a community forest right. Right to manage and protect traditional forest resources. Relief and developments. Rehabilitation in case of illegal evictions and access to basic amenity. That means what? Suppose if those forests have been diverted for the development of industries, then it is the right that they should be what? Rehabilitated to other reasons. So these are the different rights. Okay. Now, administrative journey and conflict approval pipeline. See, try to understand. Here we have seen that now we have this particular approval process. It is being divided into 2, stage 1 and stage 2. Earlier, the time frame of this stage 1 is 2 years, but for now it is up to 5 years. So that what they can start the activities and all the things. After that, the government, it will be under compulsion to provide the stage 2 itself. Now, stage 2, it is the what? Final approval. It is what? Final approval. Earlier, Gram Sabha. Are you aware of Gram Sabha? In the polity, you must have completed the consent of Gram Sabha. It was mandatory before starting any project. Okay, if you talk about the forest land, okay, if you want to go for the industrial development of it is necessary to take the consent of the Gram Sabha. But now there are a lot of ambiguities. What is that? Stage 1 it is being approved, and after stage 1, in between that, Gram Sabha will come into picture, and finally stage 2. That means what? Stage 1 it can be done without Gram Sabha also. ठीक है ना? So Gram Sabha, the democratic foundation, initiates claims. After that, what? It will move to the sub-divisional committee, technical screening committee, and final district level committee, the final approving authorities. Strategic safeguards, critical wildlife habitat, no relocation without informed consent and proof of damage, no sale policy. That means what? Land is inheritable in nature. These people, actually, they can what? It can move from one generation to the other generation, but inalienable, cannot be sold, or it cannot be transferred to the other people. 2026 revision corner. A reminder that strategic clearance do not legally extinguish pre-existing FRA titles without due process. That means what? Ultimately, when you talk about like the suppose if you want to go for the development of strategic industries, that means what? It is mandatory that we have to take the concerns of these local people. We have to take the concerns, the right of these particular people. But now it is what? Lots of ambiguities are there, because stage 1 it is being approved by the state government, and after that what? Final approval it will be done in the stage 2 itself. Okay. So lots of ambiguities are there. Now the Supreme Court it has to intervene. ठीक है, समझ में आ गया ना? Lots of things are there. See, इसलिए मैंने I have prepared the notes in a different sense itself. Each and everything they are being what? Categorized, so that you do not get confused. Okay. Read this question. Do not go through the answers. Please try to tackle the questions. Consider the following statement regarding the applicability of Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Aviniyam 2023. Okay, in 2023, what definitions of forest are there, which can be considered as a what? Forest. This act is applicable to land that has been officially changed from forest use to non-forest purpose by any state authority on or before 20 December 1996. The act specifically covers the land recorded as forest in government records on 1980, regardless of its status under the Indian Forest Act 1927. The four lands to be governed by this act, it must be either be notified under Indian Forest Act 1927 or be present in government forest records. What will the answer? B. Why not 1? We have just discussed that if a particular forest land it has been converted to non-forest use, that particular thing it cannot be reversed. That is being not being considered. Is it okay? Baki, everything is what? Correct in nature. See, I have developed the notes in such a fashion that each and everything they have been what? Interconnected. That's why it's become very easy to solve the questions. Otherwise, if it is being asked in the examination, it will be one of the difficult statement. It can be. Okay. Now, second one. Question. What was the statement? Okay. With reference to the strategic exemptions we have discussed provided in the 2023 amendment, examining the following. For example, the strategic railway line within 100 kilometers of the line of control is exempted from the forest clearance. This is true. Construction of permanent military barrack on 8 hectares of forest land in a border district is exempted from statutory clearance. Yes, this is also what? True. Okay. A public utility project like a school on 4 hectares of forest land in an what? LWE. LWE means what? Left wing extremism. Affected district requires no forest clearance. This is also what? These are the 3 strategic exemptions that have been mentioned in your Act 2023. Okay, I have discussed only one. So this all this statement it will be what? Correct. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That we are not discussing with respect to the Forest Right Act. The third statement is what? It correlates to what? Naxalites belts. In this Naxalite belt for the development, these 4 hectares of land, it can be what? Utilized for the development of schools and community centers. ठीक है ना? See, this is the issue. When you go through the certain magazines, okay, certain points it will be there and certain points it will be missing. 100% topics it will be mentioned in the particular magazine itself, but certain points it will be missing. Now UPSC, it's going to develop the questions from those points only. Is it okay? Okay. Now question number 25. Go through this question. What is the answer? The 2025 guidelines reclassify plantation and afforestation of forest land as forestry activity. Which of the following is an analytical consequences of this shift? First, it allows for the commercial harvest of these plantations by private entities without any state oversight. It allows for the commercial harvest of these plantations by the private entities without any state oversight. We have discussed that now the private entities, private parties, NGOs, they can go for the restoration of degraded land, but obviously it will be under the oversight of a state government, है ना, or central government, depends, है ना, लिखा था ना, it will be under the management of. So this ownership, so this statement is what? Without any state oversight, this statement is what? Management, ownership and management, it will be under state government. Okay. Second point, it eliminates the legal diversion trigger, thereby waiving the requirement of NPV and compensatory efforts, and that is correct. If the private entities, NGOs, they can go for the ecological restoration on the degraded land, but they all these activities they are being considered as what? Forestry activities, and because of that they do not have to pay NPV and they do not have to go for the development of compensatory efforts. This statement is what? Correct. Take time, no need to go through the answers. Take time, within 2 minutes try to solve these questions. Take your proper time. Vinay, don't go through the answers. Okay. what? D, C. Okay. So see, C, 2 and 3. Okay. Which one? C. The state government intends to permit a private agency to restore. We are talking about the restoration. है ना? To restore 200 hectares of degraded forest land. That means what? It is considered as a what? Forestry activity. It is a what? Considered forestry activity. That means what? NGOs, private entities, they can participate, but it will be monitored by the state government. Monitored by state government. State government, is it okay? And when you talk about these private parties, it's not like that they can go for any sort of activities. Their activities is limited to what? Plantation and afforestation. Okay? Plantation and plus afforestation. Okay, so here it is what? In the light of Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Abhiniyam, the latest guidelines consider the following. Since the land was recorded after 1980, the 2023 amendment automatically mandates the central government clearance for any restoration activity involving private participation regardless of the activity nature. Only plantations and afforestation it is being allowed. है ना? Regardless of the activity nature. Second is what? Under the 2026 guideline, if this restoration is classified as forestry activity, the project is exempted from paying NPV and provided it aligns with the state forest working plan, obviously, because it is working under what? Estate management itself. True. Third, the reclassification of restoration as forestry activity under the 2023 amendment actively bypasses the requirement of Gram Sabha consent. Under the Forest Right Act 2026 for the management of community forest resources. No, this statement is what? Wrong. Okay, when it comes like community forest resources, the consent of the Gram Sabha, it is being required. But we have seen that for the different sort of projects, now those projects, they are being divided stage 1 and stage 2. So it's ambiguous. It is what? Little bit ambiguous in nature, but definitely the consent of the Gram Sabha, it is being required. You can go through the answers. This is a legal overlap trap. While the 2023 amendment does not explicitly mention Gram Sabha, it is not being mentioned. It seems to be implicit in nature. The important points, all the important points we have discussed, it's nowhere it is being written regarding the Gram Sabha. Okay. This is a legal overlap trap where while the 2023 amendment does not explicitly mention Gram Sabha consent. Explicitly means what? Gram Sabha word, it should be properly used along with their what? Limitations and activities. The Forest Right Act 2026 is a separate and sovereign legislation. The Supreme Court and the various high courts have repeatedly held that the Forest Right Act requirement for the Gram Sabha consent for any activity on community forest reserve land cannot be overridden by amendment to the Forest Conservation Act. If you carry out any sort of amendment also, but still the consent of Gram Sabha, it is being required. And this particular guideline abhi bana hai na, in January 2026 itself. Okay. Explicitly नहीं लिखा हुआ है. Explicitly लिखा हुआ है. Explicitly. The reclassification of restoration as a forest activity under 2023 amendment effectively bypasses the requirement of Gram Sabha. Effectively. नहीं तो नहीं होगा ना consequence. The Supreme Court and the High Court जो है the tribal peoples over there ना, who have inherent right over there, they will move to the Supreme Court, they will move to the High Court, and apart from that we have discussed that any sort of amendments, they cannot deprive this right from this indigenous people. ठीक है. Statement 1 mandates central government clearance for any restoration activity involving private participation regardless of the activity nature. कुछ भी एक्टिविटी आप नहीं कर सकते. द एक्टिविटी दैट इज बीइंग परमिटेड इज व्हाट प्लांटेशंस एंड afforestation. Apart from those activity, they should be under the management, state management plan of state government itself. ठीक है. Okay. So yes, NGOs and private entities. See, just try to correlate. The private parties, NGOs, they will participate on what? Forest degraded land. They will participate on what? Forest degraded land for the purpose of ecological restoration. Ecological restoration means what? They will go for the plantation, they will go for afforestation. Obviously, if they are going for the plantation and afforestation, they will be considered as what? Forestry activity. And if it is being considered as a forestry activity, they are going to develop the forest. Obviously, what they do not have to pay NPV and they do not have to use what? They do not have to go for the compensatory afforestation. But yes, those activities, they should be in accordance with the state working plan. कुछ भी है जो है, कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते. कुछ भी नहीं करने का मतलब क्या हुआ? कि भांग की खेती कर सकते हैं. हाँ, ठीक है ना? Okay. So we'll take the break today, okay na? And we'll start with 12:30. What is the lunch time? Your lunch timing? Lunch timing. So we'll start from 1 बजे 1 to 2:30 itself today. Okay na? Okay, thank you.